Bad boys, what you want, what you want, what you gonna do when Sheriff John Brown come for you?
The Good, the Bad, and the Guilty is recorded live with the men and women of law enforcement. All suspects are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Now, here's your host, Iredell County Sheriff Darren Campbell.
Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you?
Well, welcome to The Good, the Bad, and the Guilty. I'm Sheriff Darren Campbell. Obviously, Bill Hamby, my trusty sidekick chief, is here with me today.
Hey, boss, how are you?
Doing well. And if you look over, we'll introduce him in just a second, but that's Ricky Adams. Ricky, make sure you're a captain this week, right?
Yeah. Still.
Do a good job running our jail. So, Bill, we got to quit giving weather forecasts because, like today, and we've learned because sometimes we have to use old shows. But if we say like if this would have been a day and we said back it was cold in the wintertime, then somebody would think we were crazy.
Well, I can tell you, it's toasty.
Oh, yeah.
In here and outside.
Yeah, I hope everybody feels sorry for us because Joe won't allow us to run the air conditioning while we're talking. So,
I think there's union rules against being.
I think there's three of us and one of him.
That's right.
Except he has a remote
Joe,
control.
I think the sheriff's got a great point, Joe.
I could turn it on if you'd like, but people are going to hear the AC in the background of your show.
Or they're going to hear the sweat dripping onto the floor.
Or Ricky passing out.
It'll just sound like a helicopter.
It'll sound pretty good.
No, man, it's good. It's good.
And we're just messing with you.
It's good to be back with you guys. I've been gone probably 3 weeks now. I see Joe. He was smiling when we come in a little while ago.
He's in a good mood. It's been busy, but glad to be back. But as always, you can follow us on X, Facebook, the app. Follow us on. Go down the comments. We're there. Yep. We're watching them as we can, so we'll try to answer anything we can. And thanks to our sponsor, Harrison's. And Bill, I know you're going to give them a quick plug.
I'm telling you what, I'll give them a quick plug. But if you get to Harrison's today, buy you some of those good short sleeve Carhartt T-shirts. But as it says here on our lovely script, from the job site to the rodeo to the backyard hammock. Oh, backyard hammock. That's where we need to be today.
It's too hot for that today. After all of our power went out, everybody's power was out last night. At least
Yes, absolutely. Harrison's, they have you covered. They're the Southeast leader in Carhartt and Ariat workwear, and nobody has more in stock work boots and clothes and all sorts of things. They can get you ready to go boot scooting from Western favorites like Cinch, Rock and Roll Denim, and Wrangler. Visit their Mooresville location or shop online at harrisonsusa.com. Harrison's, for your home, for work, for Western, and wow. And wow. Go get you some shorts, one of those T-shirts. I think I told y'all, Ricky.
Pocket knives, anything.
Yeah. Stephen had a Carhartt T-shirt, and he's like, "Mama, cut the sleeves off of it for me." And apparently, that's the thing to wear, like in the weight room up where he's at in school. I mean, if you got one of those good Carhartt, you put your earbuds in the pocket while you're lifting. So he's pretty appreciative of that.
Well, and Harrison's does. I mean, remember, there's a lot of businesses that don't have to, but they support us in law enforcement. They always have, always will. They sponsor this show, so we can't say thank you enough. So definitely patronize them if you can. Go down there; they've got something for everybody. I saw
their Facebook page the other day when we had hired those 8 new deputies. That they were happy to do the uniforms for our agency, and they always look sharp. And as far as getting stuff, I know, Ricky, you guys over in detention, and especially our patrol division, man, if we need something, they've got it. Or if they don't have it, they're like, hey, it's here tomorrow, and it's there.
It is. They look out after. So, no, yeah, absolutely. Like Bill said, they're in piece of equipment that we need other than a taser. Car. We can't get, car.
Taser, car, so, guns, bullets.
Well, Ricky, today we get a lot of questions asked, so this is probably going to take up hidden different parts of it, but we're going to talk about, I don't say what it's like to be in jail, but how the detention facility is run and it's not just locking up people. It's dietary needs. It's holding for the federal government. It's murder trials. It's classifications. Mm-hmm. It's making sure that everybody gets their medicine. It's making sure visitation goes right. Prisoners get to this prison, to that prison. We go pick them up one in Alabama if we've got to have one in Alabama. So I guess really we'll just start. And how long have you been with the sheriff's office, or how long have you been in this?
So started December 2009, so coming up on 16 years. Never done law enforcement before that. Always worked.
Bill and I would still call you a rookie.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, I can't believe it's been 16 years. Really, it doesn't seem like it's been that long. But I started pretty much where every other detention officer starts. You hit the door.
So what made you want to do this?
you know, at first it was just job security because it was during the recession, and I'd already been laid off a couple different places trying to find a place to work. And then, you know, a friend of mine that works for the sheriff's office came in one day and said, "Well, why don't you try this?" And I always thought you had to have schooling, you know, to be a detention officer. I thought you had to go like you do go to BLAT. So I said, "You can do that?" He said, "Yeah, just apply." So I applied and started.
15 so years later, here you are.
And Sheriff, you worked detention center too, didn't you?
I did. I started as unpaid reserve working just on the road. And then I got an opportunity to come into jail. Sheriff Lloyd offered me a job and came and worked in the jail, I think, with probably about 14 months right at it. I tell these guys now, Bill, you'll see, and Ricky, you know this too, but whenever we do hire, no matter what you're hiring for, I say we always go work because that is one of our foundations. You know, detention courts and civil is basically our foundation, and law enforcement, we're responsible for it, but that's sort of we've got certain constitutional duties we have to do first, and the jail is one of them. And people don't understand, and we'll get into all this, but basically we're running one of the largest full-time hotels in Iredell County and definitely one of the largest mental health facilities. What are you housing today, just roundabout?
452.
452 of the county's worst individuals.
Yeah.
And you know,
Absolutely.
something I always, when I first started, everybody said, "Oh, that's an easy job. You're just watching inmates." Well, that's not what we do.
Far from it.
Yeah.
No, there's a lot of, you're dealing with all sorts, and you know, didn't even think, well, I do think about it, but you know, there's a lot of, usually some of those that do come in here, some have, you know, diseases.
Oh yeah.
Medical issues. You know, I got pins in my hand from a fight with the guy that was on drugs years ago. But you know, we've seen TB, we've seen COVID, we're still seeing COVID. All sorts of stuff that you have, and try imagine having a flu or a stomach virus break out in a jail.
Yeah.
Well, I think, you know, fortunately or unfortunately, rather, I guess, either way you want to look at it, I never had to work in the detention center because I started in Taylorsville, then I came here. But just watching the newer part of the facility be built and those positive pressure rooms coming just right on the heels of when we got COVID, just so much farsighted thinking. You and the architects and everybody had that foresight to think about, you know, like you say, flu, stomach bug, things like that, not to mention TB and some of these other communicable diseases.
Chief Conlon was good at that because he's got such a long time in state prison and here. So, but you know, you said something about a while ago when you said school, and you don't have to. You do have to call. You got to go to high school. You got to graduate. But we will take for. I wasn't gonna hit on this, but you know, talking about coming into the job right now. Currently, if you come in, we will send you to school. We'll hire you. We'll get you in detention officer school. But those that's listening may want a long career with benefits, retirement, a pension, 401k contributions, dental, vision, medical, wellness clinic. I'm trying to think of everything else off the top of my head. But if you come in the door, what are we starting out for? 14 days a month. And that's what we do. Now, the reason I say 14 days is because we work 12-hour shifts.
Let's hold that answer because we got about 20 seconds left. And I want to give Ricky's time, and I want to follow up with a question on that. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening today, thank you for tuning in to Good, the Bad, and the Guilty. We have Captain Ricky Adams, Sheriff Campbell, and myself here. If you have any questions about detention center operations, or maybe working with us, hit us up on Facebook, or you can always call us at the sheriff's office. We'll be back in about 2 minutes.
Yeah, about 2 minutes.
Excellent.
Welcome back to the Good, the Bad, and Guilty. If you want a weather forecast, I think it's 112 in here. And
In the sweatshop.
I'm kidding. Joe's doing the best he can. He's over shaking his head.
I think if Joe could stand behind the camera and just fan, I think it would help a lot.
You know,
I don't think Joe's feeling that one.
Did you want me to respond to that?
Yeah, well, I mean, you always can. I mean,
I don't know if I have something big enough to create that much wind for you guys.
I think we create a whole lot of wind.
well, you could have got a box fan, and just held it up and just blew it over this way. Oh, well,
But that would defeat the purpose of turning off the AC.
That's right.
Bless his heart. I'm glad we're here
Sassy,
today.
I am
I've missed you guys. I really have.
Well, Ricky, before we left, was asking. I remember talking about the education, talking about the benefits. So while you hit that, if somebody's listening now and say, "Hey, I'd like to look for another career," yes.
Can I ask one question? And Sheriff, you haven't worked in it for many years, and Ricky, you was 16. Was there ever a time when you could just come in and work the detention center without going into what we're going to talk about as far as going to detention officer school?
You've always had to do DO school. You've
Yeah,
always had to be
as far as
certified.
I know, yeah.
Even many years ago.
Yep, many years ago, because I
Okay.
went and yes, yeah, because you always had to, because you got law enforcement, you got the basic law enforcement training for the certification, then you got detention officer school, and the jail rules, and I'd hate. There's over 40 some changes just last General Assembly, I believe, policy direction or policy question. So how you can work, who you can work with, are you a certified officer before you go? You got to work with a DO. And that's up for them to keep it up. But so if we was going to bring somebody in, what would you tell them?
Well, I mean, I explained all the benefits we have, and one thing I don't know if you hit on the sign-on bonus.
I did not.
$2,500 sign-on bonus paid out over 18 months. But it's a rewarding career. It's different. It's not for everybody. But as far as wanting to get your foot in law enforcement, if you've never done this before, that's, in my opinion, is the way to go.
Yeah.
Because you learn how to talk to people in there because you spend so much time with them. You think about if you're on road patrol, you're spending 1 or 2 hours with the person during the arrest. And we have them for...
In the jail, somebody may tell, it's not like what you see. It's not like a bunch of people hanging on bar stuff. It's very quiet. It's very, we have pods. We do still have the old jail that has bars in it. But, which some of us that work there, back big, back little, front big, and front little. That's something you always remember.
Yeah.
But it's, in the back, we have pods. They're controlled. You don't have a lot of one-on-one other than communicating, but you're not in there with them all the time. But you do get a chance to talk to people.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a lot of intelligence on other criminal investigations come out of the detention facility.
And I know in the past that we've had the deputies that worked in the jail that went to the road, and they had that rapport with some of these inmates, and they've helped them on the road whenever they need.
Hey,
it.
I'm telling you right now, it helped me more when I worked narcotics cases from some of the guys that I had met in the jail and their family members, or if you had warrants on somebody, you could always call and they'd turn them into you because you're straight up.
Yeah, and you still have a fan club in the community. I can't tell you how many times I've been with you or our listeners, how many times I've been out with you at events on Saturday or eating lunch or going to a dinner or whatever. And it's always, hey, Campbell.
Yeah,
Campbell, I remember you. Hey, Campbell, you give me this.
I'll never forget.
Was so funny.
I'll never forget. I've told you the story. We had one on Wall Street one year. We had a party, huge party. Got out of here about 300 people. And I'll never forget. Jay Tolbert worked you went to school with Jay, and I worked with him. And we had a call, and I'll never forget some of the guys when he got bad. There's people threatening to fight, hurt us. A couple guys come in the middle and say, hey, they're pretty good, and got us and escorted us out of there and got us back to our patrol cars out of that crowd. So it's just one of the relationships you build.
So do you have a fan club, Ricky, of folks that you can go out and see?
And Bert don't count.
And they know you? I mean, from folks that's been in the detention center?
Yeah, I mean, I was walking to the truck on the way over here, and somebody's hollering my name. Hey, how you doing? I can't remember who it is.
But we're big,
awesome.
and I tell you, you want to treat people. You want to treat anybody like you want your mom treated. You got to be respectful, And I tell all you guys and the new hires, you can only give so much respect, but you have to get it as well. And don't get in there and don't get hurt. It's not. I don't think it's as dangerous as it used to be, and I guess that's not the right way. There's a lot more security measures in place to separate those officer assault opportunities.
Yeah, there is. The design of the new jail itself lends to officer safety and, actually inmate safety too. Just not having so many out in an open area like that.
Well, a lot of people say, well, you don't need to build a jail. You have to. We've got a population that's growing, and some of that population does commit crimes. But when I was first elected, that first year or two, we were spending up to $100,000 a month in out-of-county housing.
Oh, yeah.
Expand on that, Sheriff, because I know we've got a lot of new listeners to the area, and I know that maybe a few that have just moved in are now listening to the radio station. But kind of you and Ricky both explain how we had that what we call the old jail is not really the old jail. I call it the middle jail, but we also had an annex, and some of the safety concerns and some of the things, some of the issues that we were having.
I'll let Ricky go in annex, but we had a 1971 facility that was built same year as courthouse, and that housed, I think, probably 60 inmates, just right at it, give or take.
Yeah, like 60, 68.
So that's the old bar section. Then we went in, the first was pods, and opened, that was the 1996 section.
Right.
And now we went with the 2017 section. So now our total capacity is 501.
Yep.
You know, we can feed those. We have a generation capability for electricity if the power goes out. We do have that. We do not have weights, and we do not have what else is it? We don't have weights. We don't have TVs.
No TV, no
we don't have no
basketball
sound recording studios. Right. We don't have lounge chairs. Jail's jail, and I want to serve a purpose of don't come back to Iredell. I want you to know.
Right.
And you know, if a lot of people say they don't get honey buns unless they buy honey bun. We feed them basic meals. We feed 2 hots and a cold, or 2 colds and 1 hot a day. I can't remember where it's stand. 2 hots.
2 hots, yeah.
And cold at night. And you still get the sandwiches?
We do.
With the swirl bread?
That's our trademark.
The world famous swirl bread?
Yeah, 2 sandwiches and 2 cookies. But you know, and we meet the regulations set forth by the state, by the DHSS, because they say you have to have between 21 and 2,400 calories. And so, I mean, that's a pretty good calorie intake for.
It is.
Because that's a whole other issue that I found fascinating once I came here and started listening to you guys, and you know. But tell folks about the old prison that we had, and why we saved so much money, as you've alluded to, Sheriff. When we built this new facility, yeah, it cost, but how much have we saved since?
Well,
and how much more secure is the community and our officers and the inmates not having to?
I'd have to run the numbers, and Rick, you can sort of help me on what we say, but I can tell you this: we got up to 100,000 out of county housing.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that was sending from jail.
That's
$100,000 a month out of county housing. Yep. They don't count transport costs. That don't count all that. But also, when we did to the prison, the old prison, which is up on 21, it's still is pretty much storage now. Yep. But you know, we were having to do sewer because there was no sewage fields left. This was built in the 30s.
Correct.
So we were paying $200,000. We call it pump and haul. Just to get rid of sewage and gray water and stuff. So
ladies and gentlemen, just do the math. $300,000 a month.
No, $300,000 is $270 was the pump and haul for a yearly total.
Okay.
$100,000 a month.
So $100,000 a month.
Yep.
So that's what, 1.2 mil?
Right at it. Plus the hauling those dangerous people in cars from these facilities, because it was our responsibility to go get them. I may have to leave and go to Wilmington.
Correct.
And pick up a prisoner.
Correct. And on Superior Court Week on Saturday and Sunday, we was picking up as many as 30 or 40 a night and switching them out.
Right.
And it wasn't just the fact of having to move them. They didn't want to go to another county, so they had to be taken.
And had we had an accident, hit a deer, flat tire, then you got the officer out by themselves. I was really glad to get these prisoners back in a facility where we don't.
And I think
that's
I think that's a key point, Sheriff, that our listeners need to understand is, now that we have them under one roof. We have them in, as you said, Ricky, a facility that was designed for, and Sheriff, you alluded to, protection of the inmates as well as the detention officers to make things safer. They don't have to be hauled out through the community. We're not hauling as many people across the state. It was just a wise, smart investment to have that new detention center built. It
was done, and the commissioners did a good job getting it at the time. It was pressed between us, negotiation, a lot of it, because nobody wants to spend that on a detention facility. We're still, even our office now, as we've grown, the sheriff's office, that was built in 96 and had a 5-year shelf life.
Yeah.
And you've not heard me crow about that needing it. But we're over 300 employees. We were going to have to do something at some point. But that's a whole nother thing we got to deal with. But we still hadn't hit the point. So if they come in the door, all the benefits, what you going to start them out at? Straight in the door.
Well, they just went up again. I know it went up over 49,000 now. It just took effect this past week. So,
and you sign on bonus.
And your sign on bonus.
And medical, 401k, everything that you alluded to earlier, Sheriff.
I mean, I think that for a career start now, that's a pretty good amount of money.
That's good for me and Bill, retire career.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, well, I cannot believe this time, so I don't get, sorry, we're less than 2 minutes, we got to take a break.
Right.
I guess, Ricky, what would you like to hear when we come back? We still got another 30 minutes, we got 2 more breaks. What would you like to start with when we come back so we can sort of give the viewers somebody and call somebody and tell them to tune in, we're going to talk about it?
Yeah, we can talk about like what it's like daily life in a jail.
That
I think it would
classified.
be it'd be neat to give our listeners a view of, okay, this person is arrested. They've just come out of the back of a deputy car, a police car, a state trooper car, or whatever, and they come in the door. What is that process that they go through? Because there's quite a lengthy process that our detention officers go through to get them in and make sure they get
And
to
you
the
got to have them
magistrate.
classified. Sex offenders. How many murders you got right now, just off the top of your head?
20 plus.
20 plus murders. And I'll give you some numbers because we've got about a minute. I'll go through some of these. Inmates process, and this is just up until now, I think, right? Or 2024. I'm sorry.
last year.
5,600. 5,600. Average population about 412. Going down, I'm looking here. Meals served, 451,000 meals. Over 208,000 miles for transport commitments. And we get on a little bit on the road crew pickup, over 2,000 bags of trash, but that's part of the jail because we do run a road crew with inmates that we do use inmate labor.
Absolutely.
And that's something that's a good thing we'll come back into with some of those numbers and show how it offsets taxpayer dollars to the tune, just a little foreshadowing, about 89,000 man hours, average rate, about $2.2 million a year that we offset that we don't spend that money on. So
About 15 seconds left. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in today. The Good, the Bad, and the Guilty. If you've ever wanted to know about a detention center or what it's like to be in jail, tune in when we come back, and we'll be back in about 2.5 minutes, Sheriff.
sounds good. Get on the enforcement side.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in today to The Good, the Bad, and the Guilty. Joe, thank you for playing my favorite music over there. I always think of Alfred Hitchcock when I hear that song. So Joe makes sure that he plays it for me. But thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, again for tuning in. Have Sheriff Darren Campbell with us and Captain Ricky Adams, who's one of our detention officer supervisors. And Sheriff, you and Ricky were having a great conversation there before we went to break. And I think we were talking about some of the numbers and some of the stats. And even during our conversation off the air, we were still bringing up things to talk about. So, Joe, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, sir, instead of 1 hour, we're going to need about 3 hours to cover everything that we need to cover. But Ricky, and I think, Sheriff, we were kind of thinking about going the same way. When someone gets arrested, whether it be by a warrant or however they end up coming to our facility, we are the only jail in Iredell County. So when they get to the doors of your facility, tell us what happens.
So when they arrive into the Sally Port area, with the new jail, we actually have an enclosed Sally Port. Mm-hmm. Officer safety, keep the door shut. Then they would go to the magistrate from there. After they've been to the magistrate, they come in there, and the first thing we do is have them remove everything out of their pockets. Remove their belt, remove their shoes, anything that take them down to a single layer, and do a thorough search to make sure they don't have any contraband or drugs on them. And we have a body scanner. So we put them in a body scanner and make sure they don't have anything concealed. We'll log their property, take pictures of it, and then move them to the processing area where they would get booked in. Their charges and all their demographics are logged. Find out if they have any primary health problems right then. In case if we have a diabetic come in, we don't want to find out because he's
correct.
And y'all basically do a full medical.
Yeah.
A full medical on them.
We do a full medical, and then if there's something to be done after that, we have 24/7 medical with nurses. And they have a doctor on site, or on call. Sorry, she comes on site once a week. But so, one thing I don't think people realize is that jail is self-contained. Everything we need is in that jail. Mm-hmm. Our medical, our cafeteria, laundry, it's all done in that jail.
It's a pharmacy.
Pharmacy, yeah.
A lot of that, Bill sort of brought that up, and a lot of people, this is things that, we can talk about all day about being a prisoner and all that stuff, but things they don't think, we have say we got a hurricane like Helena when it come through. Mm-hmm. We pre-plan that. We open up and we make sure that we got to order medicine. We got to make sure we got enough fuel for our generators. We got to make sure that we can provide food, and because we can't take them nowhere. And then at the same time, you got to worry about evacuation routes if you had to do it. So can you hit on a little bit what, say 5 days before a storm that we hear it's coming, or say riots or something if we had, because there's been cases across state, I know y'all went to them, where you actually sleep in a jail somewhere. Mm-hmm. So, we have to think about having that and be able to provide shelter for officers if they were come here to help us.
Yeah, and we have done that too, where we took one of our older units and decked it out for any officers that had to stay there. But yeah, we would get a stockpile on food. Water is very important because if you lose water, you still got to have water for the inmates. You got to flush toilets. So we have bulked up water. Medical, if you have a bad event, the medicine's not coming in, so you got to get stockpiled on that. So we have to have everything because you can't, like you said, you can't just go out and get it.
Right. And just to echo what you gentlemen are saying, and I know, Sheriff, I saw it firsthand, it's more especially firsthand this time, Helene, where the North Carolina Sheriff's Association, you being president, and then sitting on the board, everything kind of funneled through our agency for the most part, for the western part of the state, when communications were down in those initial early days. And I remember sitting there listening to you and Mr. Caldwell and some of the other sheriffs on the phone. We took cases of water to these jails because, Ricky, like you say, even though they had prepared, nobody knew the magnitude of that storm. So all the jails, all the detention facilities, all the sheriff's offices on the periphery of the storm damage, it seems like we were kind of those first responders for those sheriffs and those communities till everybody else could get in.
Yeah, it was a clearinghouse of information here and with in Chatham County, or not Chatham, Yeah, Chatham with the president, Mike Robertson. So they did a lot of work from there too. But one thing I seen with Helena, a lot of the jails, and I'm sure we're like this because there's a lot of pre-planning, but they couldn't store enough water to make sure they took care of everybody. So they had to bring trucks in. And then you got to have special pumps to get them to pressurize. So that's something that we've sort of tried to talk about, make sure that we have the capability because, just a truck sitting on the ground level is hard to get it up five stories. So there's all sorts of things that's learned from those emergencies. But you're right. You're talking about, we got to have, AEDs, emergency medicine. And I think we are probably one of the, unless there's another you don't think of, I'm sure the hospital is one of them. But since 1971, since that jail was built, there's never had a closed day. It's never been unoccupied.
24/7, 365.
54, right at 54
time.
years.
And being on the board for the Jail Administrator Association, had a lot of conversations with fellow administrators, and they all said we planned all we could. We planned, but nobody could plan for that magnitude.
Right, exactly.
I know the McDowell County Jail Administrator spent 11 days sleeping in his office. He didn't get to see his family. There was another jail administrator that was unfortunately swept off the mountain and lost her life just 2 days after due to a flood.
And we went to visit that sheriff 2 days after it happened, I think. Because we got there Monday, maybe 3 days. But
Right.
and that's one thing. But another thing going in, if we do have an emergency thing, we got to worry about officer safety. We got to worry about feeding officers, keeping them there. And we talked a little bit about that. But how do you deal with the classifications? Because you got sex offenders. You got to remember, everything runs crime. It is what it is. You have gangs. You have sex offenders. Well, this gang member may have hurt this person's family member who's in jail. So the internal network to make sure that we don't put an inmate in a cell with another conflict that happened on the outside.
Yep.
How do y'all keep track of that intelligence, and how do you manage that?
Well, hopefully we receive the information to be able to do anything with it. And we're pretty good about it as far as knowing kind of what's going on with inmates and what's going on outside until when they come into us. We're not putting them around those wrong people. But we have a system, too, that if we know that somebody can't be around another inmate, we can log that into the computer. And when we go to house them, it won't let us house them together. Classification due to charges, sex offenders are about the biggest one we actually put in a different area, just because it's the criminal population or offender population views sex offenses against children as the highest form of crime. Yeah.
Basically, nobody loves a sex offender, not even someone in a detention center or a prison.
No. But like somebody in there with a murder charge, they're classified like everybody else usually. They can be with somebody that's in there for armed robbery or something like that. We don't have any issues with that.
It's the first thing that happens if we do, even though we don't know it, then I'm the one that gets sued because we should have known better, even though you don't know it.
Yeah.
Or somebody trips on,
So we try to do our best with that. With our new telephone messaging system, is able to pick up some of those things just by looking through conversations. And there's been several where I found a couple inmates I didn't know couldn't be together, and I just entered that in the computer, so we don't have that problem.
And that's kept them and us safe because we don't need to, you get in a pod where you got several fighting. But, one thing before we wrap up, when we talk about a pod, it may hold how many people in a pod?
16 beds.
But knowing how good we are, we do 2-man lockdown cells. So they're housed, they're not out in the pod running around. They're actually housed in 2-man cells.
There's 37 in the blocks.
In the blocks.
Yeah.
Okay. But we use 2-man lockdown. So they're locked up.
Yep.
Unless they're out eating or using visitation, which is mobile. They no longer get face-to-face visits. But we'll come back to that a little bit and some of the other things like how much inmates we work them and stuff in the jail. So we'll be back in about
10 seconds, about 2 minutes and 10 seconds. That's
no
my
idea.
math. It's hot in here. Joe's got my brain sweating
Phil just
today.
want air conditioning. Come on. All right, we'll be back about 2.5 minutes.
Welcome to Music to Sweat By today on WSIC. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for taking your time to tune in today to The Good, the Bad, and the Guilty. We've been talking today with Captain Ricky Adams and Sheriff Darren Campbell about the Iredell County Detention Center and the numerous aspects of either working in the detention center, the experience for the inmates, and some other things. And Sheriff, I know in our last segment, this is our last segment. It seems like time we just got here and got set down.
Yeah, say thank you to Carl and Sissy.
Pastor Carl, if you want to visit, sir, you come on to the detention center anytime. And that's one thing that I will say, and then I will step out of the way. Sheriff, I know you got a lot of good questions here in just a few moments we have left for Captain Adams. But, you know, the 2 times a year that we do Citizens Academies, the Teen Academies, I know, Ricky, you guys make visits for Boy Scout groups, civic groups. And, Sheriff, you have always been extremely open to anybody that wants to come to our detention center. Come look, come see. It's clean, it's organized, it's modern, it's safe. There's nothing that we try to hide. We try to throw the doors open figuratively as much as we can, just to be transparent. And as you have said, and I will echo your sentiment, jail is jail. There is no TVs. There are no weight rooms. The rec area is just a concrete box to exercise in. But, as you said, there's no recording studios. There's no perks. It's jail. And we don't want to make it so that people want to either come to or stay in jail. So I just wanted to echo that. Pastor Carl, again, sir, if you want to take a tour, come on see us any time. So I'll let you ask those questions, Sheriff, because I think you got some good questions
There's a couple.
there.
You had something right before we went to break, and I can't remember what it was. If not, we'll come up with, I know what I was going to ask you, is I don't think people understand, we have to contract a lot of services out.
Yeah.
The sheriff's office, I made a decision a long time ago, facility services does a lot of the county office buildings, mowing yards. We don't do that. We have inmate labor. I don't pay them. They actually mow our yards. They keep up the grass, all that stuff. They work in the jail. And I'm going to throw out some old numbers, but I'm going to say it was around 89,000 man hours that we would have had to contract for as labor, staff, kitchen, laundry, whatever. Saves us about $2.2 million.
Yep.
And I also know
that's $2.2 million of taxpayer money you're saving.
Money, yep, that we're saving. Listen, somebody needs to be paying rent. Jail ain't free. It costs something.
Absolutely.
So you can work a little bit. But we also actually, and we're one of the oddities, I think, that we actually have female working inmates that take care of different. Now, obviously, they're separated. They don't work together. But we actually have female working inmates to work all the time. And we have a road crew that does our roads. So you got the trustees that do the jail, manage it, clean it, cook. You got the females that handle certain things. You got the road crew working inmates outside that picks up trash on your roadways. And
I think, Sheriff, if I may, Ricky, I think the point that you made as we were going into break, the inmates are serving inmates. This is meals being delivered to the cells by the inmates. They don't go to the cafeteria. They don't sit in the chow hall. That's the meals.
They're handed out by the detention officers. So, 450,000 meals last year, that's detention officers serving that. They prep it in the kitchen. Working inmates are in there helping cook. And then it's delivered to the area, but then it's on the officer to get it to the inmates, and then they have to pick it back up.
the kitchen crew that we have, what time do they get up in the morning to start cooking?
We got a shift of 4 and a shift of 5. So they get in there about 4 or 5 in the morning.
They're working. I said, if you've never seen, just imagine going to a restaurant when you see 50 or 40 people sitting around, going to try and serve 450 within an hour, right around an hour time frame. Is about when you try to get the plates
3 times a day.
3 times a day.
And we have inmates all the time asking to work because it gets them out of the cell, you know?
Well, and that's one of the things that I wanted to make sure that our listeners understand. And Sheriff, you make a good point that you know, they're there and they can work, but they have to volunteer to work. There's no forced labor. There's no mandatory labor. No. These inmates that on the working crew, road crew especially, they have to volunteer, and they have to be in the classification to be able to work.
And it's highly encouraged because we don't allow them to, you know, you're not going to sit around and watch TV. You're not going to sit out there and talk. You're going to be in a 2-man cell. So.
And we have different levels of working inmates too. We have some that can't go outside the facility. And we have some that do go on the road and do certain things like that. So we have different levels of working inmates also. But it allows us, like you said, the new laundry area allows us to use females because they can be secured alone in there. Mm-hmm. And then they're still checked twice an hour at minimum. You know, we just walk through the laundry room.
And y'all do laundry 24 hours a day.
Well, yeah.
Literally, to keep up
those
with
things
everything.
run all the time. Yes.
You have anything about wash? We just did in the budget. We've got to replace, I think, 2-3 washing machines that we've had now for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
But the size that we use about $16,000 a piece.
Yeah.
But that's 24/7 round the clock.
Oh, listen, it's a lot. You wouldn't have to change your clothes to get washed. You just jump inside of it. And
Just
go
jump
on.
in and go. Absolutely.
But it's and like you say, we do use a lot of labor. But now we do there is programs we try to give them like Safe Serve.
Yeah.
I know that the kitchen company that we contract with that basically handles ordering all the food, getting it there. We provide the labor, they help us, and they've got certain dietitian people that's experts and that manages it, and so there's a lot of that goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah, and then we're responsible to make sure that diet tray gets that right in me, because you're gonna have diabetic and you give him a tray that he's not supposed to be eating and it throws the sugar off. Mm-hmm. Well, that's a problem for us.
And you got religious needs.
Religious,
certain people can
yeah.
eat certain things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's a lot of that. There really is. There's a lot of special diets based on religion. And then you talking about going with the kitchen, and then you have the same deal with the medicine with the Southern Health Partners. Because out of that population of 452, probably say 290 are on meds easily. It's been running about 70%.
Wow.
So that is 270 medications being passed out.
At the same time, you're dealing with new people coming in jail that may be intoxicated, high on anything, or going through withdrawals, which is something you don't see. So we do have 24-hour medical. And I think another good point to hit is whenever somebody's arrested in this county, be it wildlife, SBI, North Carolina Highway Patrol, States Memorial Travel and Police, we're responsible for them. Yep. Even if it's juvenile, we have to pay for if it's a juvenile that's sent to lockup up in Alexander, we pay for that. So we're totally responsible for the prisoners. And I think a lot of from the officers, we try. There's sometimes that we get people arrested, especially in DWIs, we have to have checked out the hospital, and obviously they'll do it and bring it back to us. But then we have to. You've also got to make sure if they're a suicidal threat or if they've got possible injuries that they know they don't get worse in the jail, dealing with 450 some people, and that's the average. That's what we got today, I guess, 450 some.
And that's important to bring up too, because especially if somebody's contemplating suicide, a lot of times they're not going to tell you. You have to look for the signs, and that's something you kind of learn over time. There is some classes and stuff on it, but it's just ability you have to have. So.
And we do a lot of specialized training with our DO's officers to make sure they're able to recognize it.
And that's another thing. We're talking about the detention officer class. It's a 5-week, 174-hour class, but we go to a class about 222 hours. It gives us a little bit more of everything, because you don't want to do the bare minimum. You want good trained officers. Mm-hmm. So.
And one of the things, Sheriff, if we may, and you talking about being there with the inmates, talking to inmates, physical, but also their spiritual side. We have the largest chaplaincy corps in Iredell County of anywhere in the state of North Carolina. Mm-hmm. And I think that's amazing.
The pastors and the churches have been real good to help us out. And if we have, and there's sometimes that they have specializations in an area that we can't find. We do a lot of mental health referrals to mental health facilities. Yep. Hospitals are pretty much great to work with us. So we've really got it good. But yeah, you're exactly right. We have one of the largest pastors to prisoners or numbers of citizens that anybody in the state.
And they spend a lot of time in there.
Well, I mean,
they're always coming.
And one thing
I've always heard the old joke, that Jesus is not in prison or in church. Everybody finds Jesus in prison or jail.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I mean, sometimes there's some truth to that.
And one thing I was going to say, we don't only just house prisoners from Mooresville, Statesville, Troutman, wherever, Highway Patrol. We also have United States government prisoners.
Yeah.
Some people say, well, there's a lot of jails across the state that house federal prisoners. Detainers, we do honor detainers, which if you commit a crime, which is nothing changed, we do hold for the detainers. Mm-hmm. But federal prisoners, they pay us to keep those inmates. And I know when we had the cost of watching them in medical, it's all but a wash. But right now we've got to where we're not losing money.
Yeah.
What I've seen on. So we don't just house. A lot of people don't think you may have somebody you see in Charlotte that's a famous person or something, and we'll house them here just to get them out of their jails. And a lot of people don't know that happens.
And I know, gosh, and I wish we had another hour to get into this. I know, Sheriff, that we house inmates for other counties because it may be a high profile thing, or it may be a gang
Maybe
thing,
an
or
officer.
it may be an officer that committed a crime. And just to listen to y'all, and especially sheriff, when other sheriffs call you, and I know Ricky, you do a great job of coordinating that. There's a lot of interagency, interoperability, a lot of co-working when it comes to detention centers.
And I'll tell Ricky this: the captain, at 2:00 in the morning, we got something bad happens, and I know they'll try to get hold of the jail major or the jail captain. They may not be as okay. I'll call you back in a little bit. They don't understand the exigent circumstance where I can pick up to Carteret County and call Sheriff Asa Buck and say, "Listen, I need a bed for this person. We're on our way," and it's like that.
Yep.
And we have had to do that, and we do it for them. We've had some high-profile people that just people don't know about.
And it's done quietly and professionally, and making sure that there's not a lot of hoopla and fanfare, and it just everything always seems to work out well when the detention center gets involved. So,
and Ricky, I was going to say one thing: when people bring money up, it goes into a lockbox. We don't get it ourselves, and it's distributed out like a debit card when they leave, or they get in a band. So I know a lot of people, family brings money for commissary, but, and I know we've only got about 20 seconds, but that's how you do it. Just bring money, it's put in a machine. We don't touch it.
Yep.
It's digitally put out to them.
Yep, that's correct. And the jail is a cashless society.
That's
that's a good
good
thing.
way to put it. Listen,
we
see
need
us
to do
next
another
week.
show on this.
Hey, comment on Facebook. We'll get questions. We'll put Ricky in charge of answering the questions and comments.
All right.
Thank you. Sort of had to